Welcome to your weekly episode of Talk. We're your host, Eddie Marmolejo.
And Jaime Moreno.
You know, I really do feel like a broken record with what's going down in the border. Talking about it every single week, but we're gonna have to anyway because it just keeps escalating every week. Every week something's going on. We have a new development, so we're gonna stay on topic. But before we do that, Jaime, as you know, all theme parks in California have been closed for ever now. Seems like a year, right? But they're on the way to being reopened. But unfortunately for you thrill seekers, you will not be allowed to scream. You can no longer scream on a roller coaster. The Press Enterprise released an article stating that there's a push for people not to scream, but I guess with masks, who's going to hear you anyway? But whatever. Listen more. But before we begin with all of our topics this week, thank you guys for tuning in. We always invite you to follow on our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to that YouTube channel. Make sure you share it, and make sure you like and share our clips. Push this algorithm out, right? That's the only way that we get noticed. We get noticed for our work, and you guys can get well informed and tell your friends. So, with that being said, Jaime, let's go with the border again. So, as you know, this
well, first, let me clarify it before you start. Remember how Trump made it all up? You know how Trump said that there's a price to the border, and the media it was saying that it's all made up. It's on his mind. It's just a way to it's his way to push blame on his incapacity as a president. It's just, he's just trying to fuel anti-immigration rhetoric. It's just him trying to fuel, anti-immigration, more white people in America, right? That's all he wants is more whiteness in America and anti-minorities and blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the media and a lot of influencers have been saying that for the past year. Actually, before that, 2 years? It's been two, almost 3 years of this crisis going on. And, they just blew off Trump as a maker, a fake news maker, as making this thing up. It's on his head. It's all just anti-immigration rhetoric. It's just an excuse for him to, not allow immigrants to come to the United States.
Right.
Now we're having the same problem. But now it's worse. Given numbers, and just last year alone, about 20,000 undocumented people came to the border. And last year, this year, around the same time, 100,000 undocumented asylum seekers are now at the border, right? And in this month alone, I believe about almost close to 4,000 unaccompanied minors have arrived at the border recently. Yeah. And Biden administration doesn't want to call it a crisis. They've called it a challenge at the border because they don't want to use the same made up terminology of Donald Trump, right? President Donald Trump in the past. But as the media was, mad at him for the abuses and blah, 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 and this and anti-immigration rhetoric, and they're in cages and it's Nazi camps, and Ocasio-Cortez making a whole crying scene. You have activists marching and all that stuff over a made-up crisis by President Donald Trump. But that made-up crisis has now become a more and more reality, right? And as the media has ignored that point and all they focused on is anti-immigration rhetoric and we need to defend immigrants, now they're going back on a lot of their sayings. They're pushing back now because they see that it's a big crisis coming up and a lot more people are arriving at the border, undocumented, seeking asylum. So that's something we declare up now, especially our viewers or those who are just recently joining us. Let's clear that up now. We don't need to, you can just Google and talk about border crisis all the way back from Obama, all the way back from Donald Trump, and you'll see it, people coming into the border, undocumented, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But our focus here is how the media blew this out of proportion in defense of undocumented immigration and, to allow these undocumented immigrants to come without getting vetted, with that being released to the public without any way to locate them, recently, as last week, we found out that a lot of these immigrants are being released into the public without getting a COVID-19 test. But it's all about the immigrants and having to go to the United States, but they don't look at the safety and the health hazards that we're having. And now the media is trying to say, well, we need to address it.
Yeah.
We need to. Now they're calling it a crisis. Now they're calling it a problem that needs a solution to. But for the past 3 years under the Trump administration, they blew it out. They disregarded it as a made up term for Trump's racist agenda of building a border wall. Yeah, so that's something I wanted to clear out now.
No, and the flip on this, it's something that I've always criticized Democrats for until they're in power. Election time is everybody come, we're gonna be more humane. But now you had Secretary Mayorkas, right? You had circle back expert Jen Psaki. You had I think Kamala Harris also was like, no, you shouldn't come right now.
Exactly.
This is not the right time. And we're gonna have to work with partner up with other countries to make sure that we have a better way of handling the situation. The problem is you had these partnerships, you had a strategy during the Trump administration, and you pointed out it was portrayed as racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and the problem is this administration is already doing the same thing. They just want to word it differently. You had Mayorkas on Univision straight up, asked by Jorge Ramos, "Do you have kids in the cages?" No, we have them in detention facilities, bro. They're bungalows with air conditioners on them. Okay, It's a cage. And one thing we've been hearing Adam and MM talk is we get that it's difficult. We get that it's complicated. We read an article by Human Rights Watch, right, Jaime? And when they're talking about what Mexico should do or what the United States should do, and because of cartels getting into this, human trafficking getting into the situation, health reasons. And one of the things is, well, the United States should give people here temporary social security numbers and tax identification numbers. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, good luck with that one. And then on the Mexico side is, well, you should do the same thing and put them in public schools. And okay, yeah, good luck with that. Who's going to pay for it? So Human Rights Watch, we get what you're doing. We get what you're going down there. But the cost and benefit analysis, I don't think you put that into question. For Democrats, it's you had the structure already, and you on day one dismantle it all because you thought it was racist and xenophobic, and here you are 90 days later doing the same thing. That's my problem, and finally where I leave this is Latino advocacy groups and Latino liberal Latino influencers told Latinos go vote for Biden on this issue alone. And it bothers me because now I'm seeing little girls at the border, at the Mexican border, right? Biden let us in. Biden let us in. Or you see the interviews with other people, Biden let us in. And I'm like, see, this is you caused this. You caused the administration caused this. And by Mayorkas with a straight face, and with Jen Psaki with a straight face, trying to blame the Trump administration is an act of lunacy to me.
Exactly.
You said it during the campaign. We will have a more humane treatment for everybody. We will increase the numbers. Why am I sounding like Barack Obama right now? But it is, you know what I mean? You will have them all. And you basically incentivized all this to happen. And it's one thing I'm gonna give Jorge Ramos credit for right now. Because
oh God, how does that taste?
Those words came out of my mouth. But when it comes to immigration, he seems to be more of a actual journalist. But
in this instant,
and he's saying, well, did the Biden administration incentivize this because you just gave 300 Venezuelans TPS protection? Right, you're allowing kids to cross the border, right? Even you said a lot of people, but you're allowing kids. So are we incentivizing Central Americans to come and all that? And Mayorkas is there like, oh no, we're not doing that. No, of course not. We're just trying to find a way to deal with this challenge. And I'm like, no, dude, your boss incentivized all this. Your boss is creating not only a border crisis, he's creating a human trafficking crisis, a health crisis, a cartel crisis, and soon to come a civil rights crisis. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a podcaster here.
For real.
But yeah,
no, and it's exactly the same thing. I was at Jorge Ramos under Trump administration was just going off the rhetoric of anti-xenophobic. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't care what he didn't really look into details that cause a problem. He just anti-rhetoric, anti-immigration rhetoric, and that's it. That's the problem because we didn't get a solution to the problem. We just get rhetoric, and people were misinformed of a lot of the issues. So how can I say this? In this instance, he's asking the correct questions because now he's addressing it, saying that, okay, we have this crisis going on. It's getting worse under the Biden administration. He's still for, open borders in a way. But he's now seeing that it's a lot of people coming in and a lot of risk that's going to happen. A lot of, obviously, detention centers that have to be made. A lot of people being detained, kids being separated from adults, right? The whole family separation has been a big issue, right? And in detention centers, you want to get the kids away from adults because you want to cause harm to kids instead of what's the common word that happens? Molestation, sexual harassment, all that stuff that can happen to a minor, right? We want to avoid that 20, 30 years from now. That, hey, I was at a detention center with a bunch of adults and I was molested.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you focus on, this is bad, but you don't focus on the logic and reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
So here with Jorge Ramos, we'll give him a pass this time because he's actually asking the right question.
He's asking
challenging. Even though he could do better,
he
could be tougher like he did with Trump.
Yeah.
Right? He could be tougher. And be like, no, you got to answer this. No, you got to answer this. Right. No, you have to answer this. But he's not doing that, right? He's been like, answer this. Okay. Right? Which is, it's half-ass. It's half-ass.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, I'm glad he's just asking the tough questions. So that's great. And
his delivery should be tougher. He's asking the correct question, but his delivery should be tougher.
If it gets worse, let's see how tough they get. And one more thing that for you liberals that follow this show, keep in mind that even though the House just passed, right, a passport citizenship for DACA recipients, keep in mind the words of Senator Alex Padilla, who we talked about a couple of weeks ago, said current immigration reform is only for people that are here in the country. It's not for what's going on at the border. Any immigration reform that's going to come within the next couple of weeks is for people that are here in the country, that have been here, that have been our migrant workers, all these people. That does not solve the border crisis. And you're going to have this for weeks and weeks for weeks. And then you're going to have Alex Mayorga like, I just activated the volunteer force and sent it over because maybe they needed help. And I just called FEMA. We just sent FEMA over there to the border to help out too. By the way, we're going to put about 3,000 people in the Dallas Convention Center, because we're running out of space. But it's a challenge. Right. What with that?
And then the funny thing is the enforcement of border security that they're doing, right? So, like we said, the last administration, any enforcement of border security was evil.
Yeah. Now it's necessary.
Now it's necessary. Yeah. So much so that the federal government has not allowed media to videotape, record, or take pictures of any facility at the border.
Yes.
None whatsoever.
Yes.
Let me repeat that. President Biden,
the humanitarian,
is not allowing the media to enter any facility, take pictures of any facility, or get near any detention center, right, to report on what's going on. They're not allowing it, okay? Remember, this is the president who is anti-tyrant, anti-dictator, right? But he is prohibiting media, researchers, members of the public, nonprofit organizations from accessing these camps or these detention centers, right? By taking pictures. That's funny because what are they hiding?
Yeah.
If it's so humane, why are they hiding it? If it's better than Trump administration's policies, what are they hiding? And in my opinion, in our opinion here, and I'm going to talk, is he's hiding the fact that he's repeating what Donald Trump is doing. And he's prohibiting the media from accessing or taking films or pictures so he won't get the brunt, so he won't get the accusations, he won't get the outcry by public activists and people voted for him.
Well, I think
by hiding it from the media, you hide a lot of things that are going on in there.
maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ran out of traveler points and she can't make it to the border, so that's why they can't allow media access. And
maybe her distribution of fly miles ran out. But that's suspicious. Donald Trump never prohibited any media from accessing border security, the cages, or detention.
No.
Even after the fact that it was used against him, right, to portray him as this evil man who hates immigrants, right? He still allowed the media to enter. He never prohibited them from entering. But this white 80-year-old man, I'm going to say 80-year-old because I know he's not 80, but he's 80 to me, okay? He's a couple of years off, okay? Is prohibiting freedom of the press to access these detention centers, right? And the media isn't calling him a dictator. The media isn't calling him a tyrant. The media isn't challenging him. Why is he trying to hide? What's behind the doors? Why is Biden not letting us in there? What's going on, Joe Biden? No one's asking those questions. No one wants to ask that question. And no one wants to challenge the president on that.
Yeah.
Right? So keep that in mind. Observe that. Like I said, if you don't like Donald Trump, that's fine. Don't like him. We're not telling you to like him, the guy. But we want you to realize the different way the media portrays and communicates what the media is making you believe and wants you to believe, right? So that's my
so we'll see what happens between now and the next episode. But like every week, it looks like we're going to have an update on the border.
Next week we'll talk about the border.
All right, let's move on. So we finally got the signatures. We got over 2 million signatures to recall Newsom. Okay.
Yes, sir.
As of late, there have been 1.2 million signatures that have been verified. There's 300,000 votes still need to be 300,000 signatures that still need to be verified, right? But according to the recall movement and so forth, people believe that in the organizations believe they will have the numbers to put a recall on a ballot. We said, that's probably going to happen. If you did not, once again, tune into our interview with Randy Economy of the Newsom campaign. We invite you to go to that episode. We'll put the link in the bio, so on the description section, so you guys can go watch that interview and tie it to what's going on now. Another discussion that we have had as well is that although this movement was done by Californians, and I'm not labeling party, just Californians, right? There is a concern that, from my concern, if we can replace Newsom, right? If we can replace him. And by that, I mean, I don't think any of the candidates are strong enough to replace Newsom. There hasn't been a real Democrat challenger to challenge Newsom. Newsom moved all ballots to mail-in ballots under the guise of COVID-19 protection. All these things already worry me because I've seen this play before. All right, just rewind the clocks a couple months ago, and you'll see what I mean. But now there's a smear campaign by Newsom. See, the guy who was not worried is now worried. Okay, there's going to be a recall. And now he's got DNC. He's got DNC backing. He's got California Democrat backing. But this is what Jaime and I like to point out. What will be the tactic by the media for to basically counter this recall movement? So Jaime, you got a couple clips, right? So let's get those rolling on the Newsom, and what kind of language we're going to be seeing over the next couple months.
It's sad, but it's gonna happen. All right, so let me show you this. We're gonna show you this 3-minute interview with Jake Tapper of CNN and interviewing obviously Governor Newsom. Now, pay attention to who Governor Newsom is blaming this recall on, and pay attention to who his enemy is in this recall effort, right? Because if you go against somebody, you're an enemy, right? Whether what's that book called? Oh, damn it, The Art of War, right? Yeah. If someone's against you, he's an enemy, right? So Newsom makes these broad accusations and this broad assumption over the 2 million people who signed the petition to get him recalled. Okay. And pay attention real quick. We'll give you a breakdown of it, but we want you to hear it yourself. So let's put this on real quick. Give me one sec. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's that, and make sure the audio is good. And here we are.
You're facing a recall effort in part because of your handling of the pandemic. Recall organizers say they have more than the 1.5 million signatures needed to meet tomorrow's deadline to get the recall on the ballot. I covered one of your recalls before in California, and at the end of it, there was a brand new Republican governor. Are you worried?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have the lowest threshold of the 19 states that allow a recall in the country, and all you need is about a quarter of the people that voted for Donald Trump getting this recall petition to the voters this November. So I'm anticipating it goes on. We're taking it very seriously. This is the sixth recall effort in just 25 months since I've been governor. This one appears because they got an extension from a judge to have the requisite signatures, and absolutely we're taking it seriously.
You've been characterizing your the recall supporters in a certain way. Recall backers say that more than 2 million people have signed the petition. You can't think that all 2 million are, as you characterize them, anti-vaxxers, QAnon conspiracy theorists, and anti-immigrant Trump supporters, can you?
Just the lead proponents. The lead proponent of this, the lead proponent of this recall effort, by the way, that predates the pandemic, is someone that believes we should microchip immigrants. You have people that are part of the lead coalition that started this petition that are avid Proud Boy members. They're part of the 3 Percenters, the right-wing militia group. They are supporters of QAnon conspiracy theorists, white supremacist groups. That's not just that's factual. And so at the end of the day, that's the origins of this. And you combine that with Newt Gingrich and Mike Huckabee and Devin Nunes, and now the RNC nationalizing this recall, time and money, you're going to get something on the ballot.
But what do you think of the 2 million or so Californians who have signed it, who've signed this petition? I'm not talking about the leaders that you just went after. Certainly all 2 million Californians who signed this aren't all Trumpsters. I mean, we have interviewed people who were supporters of yours who are now supporting the recall effort. In large part, at least according to anecdotally, the interviews are reporters on the ground have been doing because they think that the measures you took were too harsh, too aggressive.
No, look, I respect that. It's been a difficult year. In hindsight, we're all experts. The reality is it was about a year ago this week. California was the first state to initiate a stay-at-home order. I think we saved thousands and thousands of lives. At the end of the day, though, we're making progress now. I'm just at a school, 9,000 plus schools have either reopened or about to reopen. We've administered 12.6 million doses of vaccine, 464,000 just yesterday, a record amount. We're investing billions of dollars to help get our small businesses back on their feet. And now 47 out of our 58 counties have reopened. There's bright light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm deeply mindful and I'm deeply respectful to all the anxieties that people have felt over the last year.
This is a guy who about a week ago was at Dodger Stadium and says we couldn't return to normality because it goes against equity. And now he's saying that, it's the leadership. Here's my question, Jaime. Who in California, what kind of woke person would follow a bunch of Trumpanites to recall their governor?
He's just trying to push blame somewhere else but himself, right? And that's typical.
I thought only Trump did that because Trump was trying to get.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
of course. Yeah, only Trump does that. Democrats never blame anyone else, but they always take responsibility, right? It's always Republicans who want to blame someone else. No, the fact that he said that it's all Republicans who are doing this, it's not. No. Mm-mm. Not only that, I like how Tapper went back to the
Tapper, yeah. He did a good job.
Tapper went back. He went back. Yeah. He went off on talk about Trump supporters and anti-vaxxers and this is. He went, let's go back to 2 million people. Not all 2 million people are Trump supporters. What are you talking about? Well, blah 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 blah. Let's get back to the 2 million people who are signing this petition. I don't think all of them are who you say they are. Right. Well, blah 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 blah. Right. That's awesome.
Yeah,
why? Because it's holding the politician accountable from speaking points, from going off on random tangents, deviating from the question of why is he calling 2 million Californians Trump supporters?
Yeah,
and Tapper made it himself. We interview people who voted for you, and now they want you out.
Yeah.
Well, I get it. Why didn't he call them Trump supporters? Why didn't he call them anti-vaxxers?
Yeah.
Why didn't he call him conspiracy theories or QAnon? Why didn't he call him that?
And they're not.
Because he knows that he's losing the faith of the same people who voted on him, right? With the whole lockdown order. And when he said he saved thousands of lives, we became the second epicenter in the country.
Yeah.
To New York. Yeah. And we had the most toughest regulations. Yeah. We had the toughest lockdown. We had the toughest in the country. And we became the epicenter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what difference would have made if we would have had lighter shutdowns? And obviously I'm not going to say tougher because we already know what the consequences of a tougher lockdown looks like. But what would have been the difference if we would have had a lighter shutdown?
Yeah.
Right. But anyways, that's a whole different thing. The fact that he's calling 2 million California voters as conspiracy theorists, as we're not saying none of them aren't. We're not saying there's probably people in there who are QAnon people and blah blah blah. They're in there.
Here's the thing.
But to blanket generalize them is the most dumbest thing he can do. Instead of trying to pinpoint, hey, I understand the frustration. My bad. I try to do my best, but we're better off. Maybe you could get sway the votes towards your favor, but just saying that everyone's an idiot just because they don't like you makes you an idiot. Like governor makes you an idiot.
It is, yeah, and it did, and that response was terrible. It goes back to what Randy was saying when we interviewed him. He literally said this was a movement done by Californians. I had somebody on my Facebook come at me and I always said, well, this is a waste of taxpayer money. You guys just look at a bunch of fools over there. It's like, dude, this is a bipartisan effort. And by bipartisan, I mean, let's just call it a Californian effort. If you want to talk about the challenges, right? If you want to talk about the challenges that's going to come after, that's one thing. But this is what liberals do. They just want to paint this as to be some sort of conservative movement, and it was not. It was not a conservative, because that's one of the questions that you and I had was the fundamental question. Was this just a Republican effort? Because if it was just a Republican effort, it was going to be hard to sell for a general election in California. And what we came to find out is that no, it was not a partisan movement. It was literally a Californian movement. When you have Gallup, when you have other newspapers telling you that you're at a 48% disapproval rate as to how you're handling stuff in California, almost half the state, okay? We can look at the demographics in that poll later, but you're at 48%. We have a problem. You have a problem in the state. Okay, this is a reflection of your policies. This is a reflection of what you've done. This is not some well, what did the DNC here in California says? This is not a white coup. Okay, we're not trying. This is not a white supremacist coup, because keep in mind, I signed that petition. I don't know, you signed that petition, Jaime, but it was literally for what you did for Latinos. You closed up their businesses down. You basically put them out of work. We told you that was a bad idea. You did not want to listen. And then you have the audacity to go to Dodger Stadium for your State of the State speech and say, well, we're not going to reopen because this affects Latino. Dude, you caused the bad effect. Okay. And now you're going to pay for it, because now the state of California is going to recall you. I mean, for me, that's enough. Now we can talk about that campaign next, but for me, the fact that California said enough is enough, that for me brings hope in California politics. That ordinary citizens did a grassroots movement and said, we have had enough. That for me is a great sign. Audio.
And it is a great sign. I noticed that. It is a great sign. Because they're waking up, right? It's not that they're waking up. It's not like they weren't awake. Is that we're realizing that this isn't good policy, right? And even though it's a Democrat, I mean, it's a blue state. It's a blue state. I ain't gonna lie, it's a blue state. They can question and not be afraid to question those blue policies, those blue legislation that's affecting Californians. I mean, the cost of living in California is insane, right? Gas is almost $4, right? It is $4. It is $4, okay? Gasoline is expensive in California, and it just happened like one day to the next after Joe Biden became president. The rents are insane as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the cost of living in California is insane. A lot of people are leaving the state. That's a whole different issue. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the reason why the cost of living is so high in California because of the policies implemented by Democrats. And they can't blame Republicans, because Republicans haven't had power in a lot of areas for a long time, right? They've been diminishing over the years. But the super blue state, right, the super majority Democrat state is responsible for all the legislation that has caused a lot of problems here in California. And the whole pandemic thing, I mean, he can say, oh, people are frustrated with the pandemic. Yeah, because you made them frustrated with the pandemic. You made us all get tired of it. Yeah. You made us all get frustrated. We wanted to go out for a little bit, go outside for a little bit. And no, you put harsh restrictions. Kept us out of work. I mean, EDD, the unemployment insurance, was a chaos after a while. You promised undocumented immigrants money, and you only paid less than half of the money, right? We still haven't heard word of the rest of the money that's going to undocumented.
We don't know that either,
because it's not there.
Yeah,
and then we have a trouble in the border.
Right.
First of all, we have population problems here in California. We have rent problems. We have cost of living problems. We have educational problems here in California. I mean, it's just, and now it's a whole different. California is the largest state in the union, right? It is like the trial and error, right, of what can be used at the national level. Let's be honest, California is the largest in population. If you can handle California, if you know how to work California, you can probably implement a lot of policies nationally, right? That's what they use California as a test, right, for liberal progressive ideology. Yeah. So if California is expensive to live in, gas prices is expensive, the cost of living is expensive, food is expensive. Even though they raise the minimum wage, inflation is still gonna go up, right? And this is the democratic socialist policies that are going to be implemented nationwide. If you want to know how bad the democratic progressive movement is going to be, just look at California alone. Just look at California. Yeah. And you shall see how the country is going to be in general. I mean, now that they're pushing a 15 minimum wage, yeah, that's great that they're pushing a 15 minimum wage. But in a state that you don't need 15 minimum wage to survive, like in middle country, but in states like New York, California, which are super expensive to live in, that $15 doesn't even cut it. $15 doesn't cut it. $2,000 a month to survive in California doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it, right? Because these states are expensive to live in, right? I'm going on a different tangent. Sorry, I'm deviating from the tangent. But the problem here is that Newsom should not be blaming this recall on conservatives. I mean, yes, they're behind some of it, But if you have people who are not conservative voting for a recall, right, you should be introspective and not blame the whole world, but be like, okay, what am I doing as a governor that's causing this or caused this? Did I go over? I stepped my boundaries. I mean, just the fact that he went to the French, whatever that restaurant, what's it called, the French Valley, right? And he celebrated, and he wanted to be like, oh, I should have got up and left. No, sir, you should have never gone in the first place. Just like we couldn't go out and eat with our family, just like we couldn't go eat with our friends, just like we couldn't share a meal for Thanksgiving with our families, right? Because you were like, nope, curfew. You literally put a curfew at 10 p.m. No one can leave the house, right? Unless you're an essential worker. But yet you want to say that the French Valley incident was like, I should have got up and left. No, you should have never been in there in the first place. And you should advise your friend, you know what? You should cancel that party because we're in a pandemic. But you didn't give a F about that. You only cared about you, your friends, and you think you have a different standard. And I think that upset a lot of people. And you know what? And they're rightfully upset for that. And he didn't do it once. He did it twice with George Lopez.
Even though there was no conclusive evidence that he ate or dined or even drank at that restaurant.
Yeah, well, the TikTok videos show that there was a mess on the table.
Drinks, there were 4 glasses, and he was standing right next to it. So that's circumstantial already. Circumstantial. Well, I'm like,
well, circumstantial is still evidence in a way, right? But, according to law.
But yeah, and just to wrap this up, that's what we want you guys to take away. What the argument is going to be from here to the recall. It's going to be concentrated on this so-called Republican coup against Trumpism against Newsom. And it's no, Republicans could be in the leadership. Republicans could initiate the movement. But again, 48% disapproval rating. Democrat Californians voting against you. It's a bipartisan effort. So we hope. And for all you that have a lot of influence that follow us, this is the message that you guys should be portraying. It's not Newsom it shouldn't be just Newsom is bad. It should say this is a Californian effort. And if you don't believe us, here's who's involved. Randy Economy has worked for Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians. He worked across the spectrum. How is he?
Literally,
he has his own show. Like he talks about the California economics, and I don't see him as some sort of white supremacist coup d'etat type of guy. He just seemed like a normal Californian who he's an investigative journalist, and he was tired of what was going on. That's what he reflected to us.
He is an award-winning
LA Times journalist.
Yes.
And
get out their head.
And Jaime and I are just ordinary Californians, right? But you two are Republican. Okay, so we don't count. Ordinary citizens, enough's enough. Enough's enough. And it's when you attack. When Jaime and I went down to the Santiago's, we talked to the business. Like, dude, this is nonsense. When I went to Garcetti's house, this is nonsense. Like all those rallies we went to, I'm like, yeah, this dude got to go. This dude got to go. And like I said, effective grassroots can make a change.
Yeah, and the sad thing is the media portrays that, oh, people just want haircuts. Oh my god. Yeah, that haircut, that's a business owner, that's a Latina business owner too, a barber, a shop, right? That survives on that haircut. Right. So and we've seen the social media attacks on the protests and opening the economy, like, oh, they only want the haircuts. They're complaining about haircuts. But yet at the same time that you're making fun of the protesting to open up the economy, you're complaining about how Latinos and minorities have lost a lot of wealth because of the pandemic. So you can't have it both ways. You either, hey, these lockdowns and shutdowns of small business owners are hurting the Latino community and they're losing their wealth because they're shut down. Well, yeah, let's reopen up the economy and allow them to meet the requirements, the standards, the precautions to be open safely. Right? Instead of laughing at the protests like, oh, they want to open the economy because they want haircuts. Oh my God, what a crybabies. But yeah, at the same time, I mean, really, like, it doesn't make sense how liberals think sometimes and how the media makes you think that way and forces you to think that way. The media is telling you, oh, these people just want to march for haircuts and go to the bar. Oh my God, what idiots, right? But then at the same time, that same media who's telling you to make fun of these people, well, the same media is telling you, minorities are losing wealth. Minorities are losing their wealth, and they're gonna be set back generations to get back that wealth they lost during the pandemic. Oh, because Trump's fault of handling the pandemic.
Yeah.
Really? When in California, the one who made the rules to shut down was the man we're recalling right now. Okay.
Oh man.
So that's just, let's be critical thinkers, right? Critical thinkers. Not be afraid to be like, hey, that's dumb. That seems wrong. Doesn't mean you have to support or approve that group, whatever. You might not agree with them, but at least you and I can agree that if the economy would have been open partially to the point where people can safely go about their business, a lot of Latino communities wouldn't have lost the wealth and wouldn't have been hurt by the shutdown. Right? Yeah, there would have been some negative side effects of the shutdown, obviously, but it wouldn't be a devastating one to the point where like they've lost their wealth, they've had to close doors, they've had just when we went to the Callejones, they're behind on debt, on rent, on stuff that they're not even gonna know how they're gonna survive after the pandemic, right? So
yeah, let me end it on this note. This is an article from KTLA5. Okay, title of the article: Despite California and Florida governors' drastically different approaches, the states saw almost identical outcomes of COVID-19 rate cases. Okay? So when you all made fun of Florida and DeSantis not caring for the people, but guess what? California also had the same rates, and we had lockdowns and we had everything, and guess what? We're almost identical, okay? So I will put the link in the description. You guys can read the article. I just want to end it on that note so we can move on. That lockdowns don't work, and here's a scientific study that proved that, okay? So let's move on. All right.
So it's not Trump, Mr. Governor. It's science.
Okay. So the next topic is the shooting. The shooting, right? They just
the
shooting that occurred in Georgia, right? Georgia?
Yes, okay. Atlanta. Our condolences to the families, our prayers and thoughts out to them, to the victims, to the family victims, and those who are recuperating in the hospital. May their recovery be speedy and back on their feet.
So apparently the facts, okay, as you know, as Governor Cuomo said, wait for the facts before making an opinion. Okay, the facts that we have as of now is that this guy went on a rampage to 3 nail salons, okay, because he had a sex addiction. and
I laugh because it's the most stupidest excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this dumb for me. That's why I laugh. I don't laugh for what he did. I laugh because of the stupid excuse he just made up. That's it.
Yeah, sure.
So, just to clarify that. I don't be like, oh, you're insensitive.
And apparently the only way he could take care of it is to go to nail salons and hurt people. So yeah, that's what it was.
Well, the wording is that massage parlors are a temptation for him, so he needs to get rid of it.
Oh, okay. That's what I mean.
I thought prostitution was outlawed in America. So I don't know how that was a temptation for him, but I guess for me, in my opinion, he's just a digital porn. That's it.
Hey.
And he's probably seen so many porn videos, and there's probably some scenes in there about salons and Asian ladies, and he probably thought all salons are like that, and he went on a rampage. What an effing idiot.
Anyways, so again, terrible event. Terrible what happened. We don't condone it, and I hope he gets the full extent of the law in the situation. Let's all be clear on that.
Death penalty.
My question is, and once again, the media, because it did not wait for the facts before making an opinion, in the words of Governor Cuomo. We see, this year we quite a lot of Democrats. Somehow, again, this was racially motivated. Even though you had President Biden, who said, we don't know what motivated this man. You had Kamala Harris, who said, we don't know what motivated this man. But I'm pretty sure it had to do with Donald Trump's rhetoric over the last 4 years. So, again, it's Donald Trump's fault. You don't even know the motivation of the killer, but somehow it's Donald Trump's fault, even though the killer has not given the motive yet. Okay, those are the facts.
Yes.
But Kamala Harris already made it for the opinion, so she didn't listen to Cuomo's press conference. This is what upsets me again, because when we had the El Paso shooter, right? Let's take it back to a couple months ago, when we had the El Paso shooter. He presented his motives, and although Univision and the liberal media, well, they're one and the same, well, said this was an anti-Latino attack. My first question to all those reports, like, did you all read that manifesto? He clearly stated why he did this attack. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
He clearly stated, and he said, and I know the media is going to blame Trump. In a paragraph, he said it. I know the media is going to blame Trump, but I'm telling you right now, this has nothing to do with Donald Trump's politics. That's the fact. He had his motives. He didn't blame Trump. He didn't say it was a Republican idea. He said he just needed to do this because of what he believed was the failure in immigration and the politics of that, right? So now we have this situation here with this guy. We don't know what his motives are yet, but here's an article from the publication called The Root. It was written by Damon Young, okay? And the title of the article is "Whiteness is a Pandemic." All right? That's literally the title of the article. Whiteness is a pandemic. Okay?
Wow.
And then he states, whiteness is a public health crisis. It shortens life expectancies, it pollutes air, it constricts equilibrium, it devastates forests, it melts the ice caps, it sparks wars, it flattens dialects, it infects consciousness, and it kills people. White people and people who are non-white, my mom included. There will be people who die in 2050 because of white supremacy that induced the decisions from 1850, right? And then he's going on all this rant, and this is his reaction to what happened at the Newsom.
Wow.
Right? Okay. A line should be drawn from the actions of white supremacists who stalked into 3 Asian Atlanta massage parlors yesterday and allegedly killed 8 people, 6 who were of Asian descent, to relentless anti-Asian rhetoric pollinating the national discourse over the past years. Again, it's all Trump's fault. Trump's been out of office, okay, but somehow it's all Trump's fault, even though the media said it was called the Wuhan virus, even though the media called it the Chinese virus. But as soon as Joe Biden went on the air, it was like, well, that's kind of xenophobic. Oh, no, we can't call it the Wuhan virus anymore. We're just going to blame Donald Trump, okay? But let's go to the last paragraph. White supremacy is a virus that, like other viruses, will not die until there's no bodies left to infect, which means the only way to stop it is to isolate it, extract it, and kill it. I guess the vaccine could work, but we have had 400 years to develop one, so I won't hold my breath.
Wow. So, did he literally say, let's kill white people?
So let me get this straight. Somehow, I'll get to your point in a second, Jaime. I'll get to your point, I swear. Somehow, without knowing for the facts, this is because of white supremacy. This attack, right? Without knowing the facts from the killer himself, who hasn't named a motive. This was an act of white supremacy. Now, this writer from The Root, Damon Young, says the whiteness itself is a pandemic. So now you say that all white people, somehow we're generalizing white people, right, to be some sort of white supremacists, because you said whiteness. Your article does not say white supremacy is a pandemic. You said whiteness, okay? So now that's a pandemic. And the only way you can deal with this is to eradicate it and kill it. So to Jaime's comment that was just to pop up, that is the answer. And where have we heard this kind of talk before? I invite you. I hate to do it. I don't like using this for every single analogy. Please go back to the 20th century between 1935 and 1943. I want to say, and listen to speeches from Germany during that time frame. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I don't understand how you're going to target a group of people without evidence. And how that is not racist. And how, more importantly, Jaime, is what kind of language?
hate speech.
Hate
right?
speech. But what kind of language is you when
You're inciting
inciting
violence.
violence? You're inciting violence with this kind of speech. But Gina Carano, who said, we're treating your neighbors who have conservative values like Jews, gets fired from Disney. And
Yeah, which is said Nazis made people hate each other, right? In order to send them out to camps. She got canceled, and she was considered racist and just whatever, insensitive. But yet this man can say, let's get all white people and just kill them off.
just kill them off. But that's not inciting violence because
really
that is all social awareness, Jaime. That's what we're doing here. We're social awareness. Okay. This is all about equity. When we're talking about white people, it's all go now. It's not racist. It's there's no holds barred. You can say whatever you want because apparently people of color have free reign on everything. Now people of color can be clearly racist because we had 400 years of slavery in America. We went through Jim Crow, civil rights. We went through the grape strikes for us Latinos. We went through the walkouts, todo esto, right? But but if you're a person of color, right, you can say whatever you want. If you're attacking white people, you can say whatever you want.
Even to the point of saying, let's kill them all.
But if you
and that won't be considered hate speech. That won't block you. That won't suspend you. That won't
block you. But if you say fight for your rights, fight for what you believe in. Oh man, we gotta impeach that guy. And by the way, if he dies, we're not gonna use federal funding to fund his funeral.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. So the double standard here is so obvious. I mean, his frustration and anger is apparent, right? It's apparent. He can frustrate and everything. But he's writing in a newspaper, right? Which goes publicly and everyone can read it. His rhetoric of let's hunt him down, grab him, and kill all white people in order to solve the problem of everything in the world, that is hate speech. That is racist. That's just hate speech. I don't care how you paint it. It's hate speech. If someone would have wrote that and said, let's kill all Asians, it would have been an uproar. Or Hispanics or Latino or blacks or any minority, it would be an outrage. Like, you have no idea. But this man can get away with saying let's murder all white people just because the subject matter is white, not a person of color, that they can get away with it. It's fine. It's liberating. It's inspiring. It's power, right? No, it's not. It's violent. It's hate speech. He should be banned. His social media account should be suspended, and he should lose his job.
Yeah, and we're holding everybody
because I don't care how much you hate somebody, you should never want to kill.
Yeah, I mean, if we're using the liberal standard of, cutting people off for speech, cutting people off for what they believe in, because even though I 100% disagree with what this guy said, he has the right to say it. He can publicize it, right? But if we're using the liberal standard of cutting people off, then you're right. He should be fired. He should be canceled. He should be thrown out. He should be ridiculed. He should be Don Lemon's next guest. Okay. But no, he's not. He's not Chris Cuomo's next guest. He's not on The View. He's not with Joy Behar, the sipping tea and be like, yeah, you're right. We as white people gotta reflect on what's going on.
Yeah, just the fact that he can get away with it and not have any repercussions is just bad. If we're going to talk about hate speech, we should apply it across the board, right? About inciting violence, we should apply it across the board, like Eddie says. So the liberals, if this was a man talking about any minorities, the liberals would have been in an uproar, like Eddie said. But using the same liberal standard of anger and cancel culture, this man should be shut down. Just for the fact that he says, let's round up all the white people and kill them all.
Imagine
the media makes you believe that it's okay. It makes you believe that that's fine. It makes you believe that's acceptable.
Yeah.
But if you say, I don't want my kid having a transgender teacher, you're evil, you're bad, you're the worst, and they'll do that to you. That's what the media is going to do to you. So I know I brought transgender out of nowhere, but I'm just trying to illustrate
that's
that.
fine, yeah.
This man can say, let's round up all white people and let's kill them. That's going to solve our problem in the world. he gets no repercussions, and the media is telling you by not saying anything, by not making an uproar, by not calling him accountable, by not counseling him, it's making you think that that's acceptable and you should believe the same way. But if you believe otherwise, right, then you're bad, you're the problem, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, so it's a terrible event, but articles like this, and when we're reading about just conservatives who get shut down just on nonviolent beliefs, just to express their opinion, get canceled.
Mhm.
And this person goes on there and it's talking about a complete eradication of a race freely, right? Because he has the right, he has the right to do it. Right, but I don't see the backlash. I don't see the 24-hour cycle on it. Imagine if the guy who comes out and says he was a white supremacist and he wanted to eradicate Asians, right? That would have been a 24-hour cycle, and deserving himself, because if you're a white supremacist, you should be called out and you should be thrown in jail and all that. But this guy doesn't even know what happened, doesn't even know what motivated the killer. But somehow, because you targeted 6 Asians, right, out of a sex addiction, I still don't understand that. You said it's a white pandemic. Whiteness is a pandemic, and you should kill it.
Terrible. It's ridiculous. That's just a double standard of the liberal progressive ideology.
Yeah.
Right. So until you allow yourselves to accept that and not say nothing about it and stand up against beliefs like that, it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And they're going to guilt trip you until you submit to their way of thinking and to their rhetoric and to their policies.
Yep.
So keep being quiet. But for me and Eddie, we're going to keep talking against it, and we're going to keep mentioning it, and we're going to still expose it. Whether you want to agree with us or not, it is what it is.
And with that, we'll leave our episode here. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Please leave your comments, likes, dislikes, share it with your friends. Let them know there is an alternative to mainstream media. Here it is, Talk. We discuss the issues. We discuss the articles. We discuss it, how it should be discussed. And once again, I'm Eddie Marmolejo.
I'm Jaime Moreno.
This is Talk. And remember,
we're tired of it too.